And coming up here on Newsnight in the next 30 minutes.
There are some staff who basically have no schedules and so virtually do nothing, yet are paid by the state at the end of each month.
Tonight, Speaker of Parliament Apawu Badman is accusing a section of the parliamentary service staff of drawing salaries they've not worked for. We have details.
And as the 8th Parliament gets full composition of the Parliamentary Service Board, the majority leader is unhappy with the high attrition rate among MPs and wants leadership of the NPP and NDC change the status quo.
We must admit that the high attrition rate that members of Parliament are subjected to is not comforting and is not enriching our democracy.
Also tonight,
compared to Martin Amidu, he's a non-starter. Compared to Martin Amidu in terms of stature, experience, integrity, and reputation, he just doesn't come close.
Minority leader takes on government for nominating lawyer Kisie Jabin as special prosecutor. We'll bring you his full reaction. And relief in sight for residents of Kaswa as engineers building a bulk supply point there say they're on schedule to complete the project by end of August to reduce power outages there.
And in business, credit extension to businesses under threat as COVID-19 hit loan repayment for this year.
We have details of these stories and more here on Newsnight. You can join us with your views and comments on WhatsApp at 055-1111-997. My name is Ernest, Manu.
I am Emefa Apawu.
And tonight we'll start from Parliament. A significant number of you earn salary every month for doing nothing. That's Speaker of Parliament Apawu Badman taking on staff of the parliamentary service. According to him, the situation has persisted because of the lack of monitoring and supervision by managers of various units in Parliament. He wants the situation improved and charged the newly constituted board of the parliamentary service to fashion out work ethics for the staff.
Now, the Speaker who heads the institution also pledged to address some of the concerns of the staff, including promotion and career progression.
This board must also work collectively and collaboratively to improve upon the work ethic of staff of the service. It is a fact that there are some hard-working employees of the service who are giving up their best for the service and Parliament. But it is equally true that there is a significant number whose contribution is nothing to write home about. There are some staff who basically have no schedules and so virtually do nothing, yet are paid by the state at the end of each month. Monitoring and supervision by superiors are poor and must be improved if we are determined to attain the vision of being a model parliament in Africa.
So that's the Speaker, Apawu Badman there. And Emefa, you know, the parliamentary service exists to facilitate the work of Parliament through the provision of support services to the House, including its committees and also the agencies for the support of the purpose of ensuring full and effective exercise of the powers of Parliament. The majority leader, Chairman Sabunsu, wants the House to address the issue of high attrition in Parliament.
There are other areas that the Parliament of Ghana falls short in. The performance of the representational function, the deliberative function, the information transmission function, the power of press function, and indeed, as we said, even in legislation, attributable in the main, Mr. Speaker, to, broadly speaking, the lack of capacity on the part of many of our compatriots. We must admit that the high attrition rate that members of Parliament are subjected to is not comforting and is not enriching our democracy. Mr. Speaker, I believe it's something that we must jointly address, in particular relating to the various political parties. But, Mr. Speaker, I think it's important that we engage the political parties in this discourse to really relate to the attrition rate of members of parliament. Unfortunately, the constitutions of the two political parties, both MPP and NDC, is not helping to grow our parliament. And let's not kid ourselves. Every executive will be happy with a weak legislature. And we must strengthen parliament going forward.
So that is the majority leader speaking about the attrition rate in Parliament. And this is the first time Emefa has said this. He's been saying
Very
this
passionate about that.
For some time now.
Well, the minority leader has also been speaking, and now he says the House must work to build capacity of MPs and staff of the service.
I observe that you are not satisfied with the oversight role of Parliament. We accept that as our first challenge, that we work together to improve oversight for greater accountability, particularly in the exercise of executive authority in Ghana. And as you yourself rightly noted, we will build upon the gains made by Professor Mike Okoye in the promotion of the private members bill. And we encourage as many members as possible to promote and sponsor similar bills for the good of our parliament.
Well, we'll stay a while longer in Parliament because the 9-member parliamentary committee probing the collapse of UT Bank and Unibank Ghana Limited have ordered the petitioners, Prince Kofi Amwabing and Dr. Kwabena Dufo, to submit all the needed documentation to support their petition. We can hear from chairman of that particular committee and also the first deputy speaker, Jose Usu. Now, he says the documentations will serve as a guide to the committee.
Well, that committee met last week. And then after reading the petition, we decided to call on the petitioners to bring to us all the documents on which they base their petition, their request, so that the committee will review and then guide ourselves on the way forward. We have not as yet received them. I think we agreed that we will reconvene in 2 weeks because we said we're allowing them 2 weeks to submit, 1 week to submit, 1 week for us to 1 week for us to study, and then we'll gather. So.
That is Jose Usu, chairman of that committee. And Emefa, let's move away from Parliament now. Let's look at other stories coming through. And tonight, government is fighting back following concerns that have been raised since news broke about the nomination of Kisi Jabing as a special prosecutor. The former member of Parliament for Tamale Central, Alhaji Inusaf Hussein, who is a lawyer, by the way, is questioning the basis for Mr. Jabing's appointment to succeed Martin Amidu, who resigned from office November 15, 2020.
Now he explains that the nominee is too young to fight corruption in Ghana.
Now me, as a lawyer, former MP, my only concern in the age, certain special prosecutor bill, you may to coin, we call Canada, or we call South Africa. Media, let me kind,
My concern as a lawyer and former MP is his age. When we were working on the law setting up the office, we traveled. Some went to Canada, some went to South Africa, and I was part of the group that went to Singapore. In all these places, the special prosecutor was either the same age as the president or older than the president.
There's some kind of respect, mutual respect between the president and the special prosecutor. Yes, because the special prosecutor will have to perform his duties without fear nor favor. Corruption and corruption-related offences, breaches of the Procurement Act, no oversight. And it can go both ways. It can be against the government. It can be against the other members of the public. So,
if the person is young, and in this case of Ajibin, he is just about 43 years. The problem is if the age difference won't lead to the president trying to control him.
Problem is the age difference between one and the president, and will it manifest in the president trying to control him? Because ultimately president, he can be a child of the president. So that is my concern.
So that's Inusa Fuseni's concern on Adum FM this morning.
Yeah.
But this evening, the minority leader himself, Haruna Idrisu, has also descended heavily on government for nominating Kesie Jabing. For him, he does not have the credentials and weight, as he puts it, needed for combating corruption. He, like Inusa Fuseni, compared Mr. Jabing to the former Special Prosecutor Martin Amidu. He spoke to Adum News' Abednego Asante Siedu.
Compared to Martin Amidu, he's a non-starter. Compared to Martin Amidu in terms of stature, experience, integrity, and reputation, he just doesn't come close. You need men of wits and will to fight corruption. Martin Amidu suited perfectly into it, but because he would not get the cooperation and support of the president, he had to bow out. Look at how they shamelessly got the Auditor General out of office. In one breath, you don't want people who shine their eyes on malfeasance, misappropriation, embezzlement, and corruption. So, disappointing appointment, but let's see what he's able to do. And corruption is real in Ghanaian public life. It's permeated the moral fabric of our public service. Sometimes we narrow it only to political office holders or to politicians of ministers and MPs, but you need to open your eye for it to be more inclusive.
Does it mean if any politician in Ghana says, I'm going to fight corruption, Ghanaians will not take it serious because of what you've really enumerated? This was a campaign.
After Martin Hamidu, I mean, he's a person with unquestionable integrity. And his integrity, you would not find many that can stand up to the moral standing of Martin Hamidu. He's been Attorney General. He declined appointment to the Supreme Court, Special Prosecutor. In any case, what is before the courts? How many cases? Are you monitoring them? What has been investigated? I just think that Nana Danko have lost the fight against corruption, and he's presiding over probably what will become in history as the worst twin crisis: economic crisis, energy crisis, and a COVID public health pandemic. God bless.
So that's the minority leader there speaking to my colleague Abednego Asante Siedu. We are scheduled to speak to a member of government's legal team, Mr. Gary Nimako. As and when we're able to raise him, we'll speak to them and get government reaction to this concerns that have been raised.
Yes. Emefa, let me ask you about Dumso. How is it so far in your area?
We live in the same area.
Our area, I should say.
Yeah. It's okay. At least we're just waiting for the timetable.
But the
But
schedule,
prior to that, we have some erratic power supply.
the schedule for
good.
May scares me.
We'll be fine.
It's going to be a festival.
You come to my house when my area is on, then when
I
yours
move to
is
your
off,
area.
then I also go there.
Well, today the engineers working on the bulk supply point at Kaswa in the Central Region say they are on track to deliver the project by the end of August. Now, when completed, the facility will provide enough voltage to provide uninterrupted supply to Kaswa and adjoining communities. The update was given to the Energy Minister today when he toured the facility. Mamiesi Thompson was there.
Residents of Kaswa have had to endure intermittent power supply for some time due to the inability of the supply systems coping with the increasing population and demand. To address this challenge, Gridco began the construction of a bulk supply point in the Wutu Senya East municipality. Today, Energy Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh was there to inspect the progress of work. Gridco CEO Jonathan Amwakumba gave updates.
Na dwumadie ne yedi ne sɛ de ɛbɛyɛ a ɛbɛma nyinamaya ɛkɔ fam anaasɛ low voltage sɛ ɛwɔ ahanom mpɔtam ha no.
The population is increasing rapidly, causing a spike in demand for power. So we are building the station to relieve pressure on Malam and Winneba. It will also benefit residents of Nyenyano, Bojuase, Adeso. It will solve largely the unstable power supply.
Na ɛbɛboa mpɔtam ha fo te sɛ Nyanyano a ɛbɛn ha. Bojuase, Ekokosi Swedru, Ekofa, Adeso.
The Millennium Development Authority is funding this project. Its CEO, Martin Eson Benjamin, explains how power will be connected when the project is completed.
At the end of May, we would have commissioned the Pokwasua. By the end of August, this also should have been completed. But it's commissioned, they put power into it, and before they do that, they will have to put lights off because they are interconnecting. They are cutting into the existing power and bringing it down. So you have to take power off, and that takes a bit of time. It's not a one-day job. So that's why we have a bit of outages. But it's all important because if you want to make an omelette, you have to break an egg.
Minister Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, after the brief, urged residents to be patient while the problem gets resolved.
Almost all the people working here, you see, over 90% are Ghanaians, working hard day in and night to ensure that the power systems that have not been upgraded for a very long time get the needed investment to ensure a more reliable power system in the country. We ask for cooperation, understanding, education and information through your various portals.
In about 3 months, Kaswa and its adjoining communities can at least plan their lives with certainty when the supply station is finally completed. Mamiesi Thompson, Joy News.
Let's now return to our earlier story on the nomination of Kissie Jabin as special prosecutor by the Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame. We're joined on the phone lines now by a member of government's legal team, Gary Nimako. Thank you very much for your time here on Newsnight.
Good evening, my brother. How are you?
Fine, thank you. So a number of concerns have been raised. Today we heard from the former member of Parliament for Tamale Central, Ernest Hussaini, and also the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu. Ernest Hussaini talks about the age of Kissie Jabin for the position, and the minority leader raises issues of credentials. How do you react to that?
Well, good evening, and good evening to your cherished listeners. Let me say that once an appointment has been made, every view, every concern must work. But you see, we must situate these concerns within the law, and whether or not Mr. Kissie Jabin is qualified to occupy the position that he has been nominated to perform. Now, if you look at the office, there's a clear guideline as to the qualification criteria. I have not seen in the law that you must be 60 years, 55 years, 45 years before you are qualified to be in that position. So the question about age, to me, with all respect, I'm not willing to say it. It's neither here nor there. Because he was in Parliament when the law was being passed. And no age was put in the law. And the law was passed in Parliament, the President assented, and it became law. So the issue about age, to me, is a non-starter. Now, let's proceed from there. I think that, honesty and sincerity, a young man being put in a position to drive policy in that office, to me, is very commendable and should be commended by all and sundry. The reason is simple. If I look at the work that was done by Honorable Matiamidi from the time that he was there to the time that he left off, clearly, I have my doubts as whether the office has really taken off. Because at the time that Mr. Amidi was leaving office, the only case that I am aware of was the case of Honorable Mama Yarida. That was the only case that I was aware of. In that case, in my view, well, let me reserve my views. Now, how in that case, I didn't see any case being put in court as a matter which have been investigated, completed, and put in court. So from 2018 January up to the time that Honorable Matiamidi resigned in November 2016, so 2020, almost 2 years down the line. That is what we were seeing. Now, let's make progress. In respect of the comment made by the minority leader, I think that, honesty and sincerity, to say that a lawyer of almost 20 years standing is not fit for the position. I think that that point is far below the point.
Do you find any legitimacy in the issue of weight, or as it were gravitas?
When they say weight,
is he able to stand up to the system, to the political pressure? As compared, and the comparison is drawn between him and the former occupant of the office, Martin Amidu.
Let me be very clear with this point. The issue about public advocacy is not the same in giving the work to do, and the result you produce while you are giving the work to do. You see, public advocacy and number of statements that we also, although Martin Amidu gave prior to the appointment, and the work that he actually did when he was given the position, it is there for the public to judge, not for me, Gary Macron, to talk about it. All right? So what we are saying that the eating is in the pudding. Let's allow Mr. Kisi Ajabin to go to parliamentary vetting. Let's allow him, if Parliament approves him, to take the office. Let's judge him by the work that he does. You see, one thing that you make clear, the office of special prosecutor is not the persona of the person who has been appointed. It is an office. What I expect to be done, that if, by God willing, Mr. Jabin receives parliamentary approval, he's able to build a very solid, formidable office of special prosecutor. And I want to lay the emphasis, the word office of special prosecutor, not a personal person, as Mr. Kisi Ajabin, office of special prosecutor, made up of experienced prosecutors. Who will be there?
Okay. Well, you talk about his capacity and all, but one thing that I just need clarity to, listening to Yunus Hussaini, for instance, my colleague was alluding to that earlier, that his age, for instance, will affect his capacity to stand up to the president and tell him the truth. You think that is not a possibility?
I think that issue is far below the point. The law that Mr. Hussaini was part of, that was passed in Parliament and the President assembled to it, did not make any indication as to the requirement of which age that a person has to have before he can be appointed to the office. Don't forget, Emefa, that before you can become President of the Republic of Ghana, you must be 40 years. 40 years. Mr. Kisi Ajabin is qualified to be the President of Ghana in the event that the popular will says that he should be President of Ghana. So for the 3 years, in my view, it's either here nor there.
We're grateful for your time. That's Lawyer Gary Nimako. He's a member of government's legal team, reacting to concerns raised by Haruna Idrisu, for instance, the minority leader. And then also, we've heard from Yunus Hussaini, former MP for Tamale Central. And of course, he was a member of the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee.
Yeah.
They formulated that law for the Office of the Special Prosecutor. For Haruna Idrisu, issues about credentials and weight of Mr. Kisi Ajabin is of concern to him. And we've heard Yunus Hussaini also on similar concerns compared to Martin Amidu, and we've been hearing government's reaction to that. But we'll go for business shortly, because we know we have UEFA Champions League game, Chelsea, Real Madrid, and I'm dying to
George
hear.
and Gary will be here to
we
bring
are
us
putting your
commentary.
money on. We'll get that. But before then, gender and child rights activist Diana Adiko says a change in mindset and awareness creation on bad cultural practices are ways to deal with the age-long practice of killing physically challenged children in some parts of the northern region. Now, she says although prosecution is one of the ways to deal with the problem, it may also create new challenges. We'll hear from her shortly, but first, parents of a 3-month-old born baby without arms in Kabongwole in the northern region say they are under pressure to kill their child because she is physically challenged. Children born with deformities in that community where they reside are considered bad luck and evil spirit. Maxwell Abuba has been there. He has the rest of the story.
I'm at the residence of the 3-month-old baby born without arms in Kabongwole. She cries as her mother tries to lull her to sleep. Father of the baby, Ananias Kweku Viagbedo, says he's under pressure to do away with his baby because she's physically challenged.
My friends and loved ones do not want to get closer to me now. I have had misunderstandings and quarrels with my in-laws. My in-law says my child will die if she enters her house.
He says he will not bow to the custom and beliefs of his community. Mother of the baby, Mary Nyong, says there's pressure on her to get rid of baby Mauko.
They want to kill my child because they say she's not human. I know she's human and she'll be great in future.
I've now met Solomon Atta. He's secretary to the chief of Carbon Wule. He says it is the belief of the community that physically challenged children are evil spirits. He cites an instance where a physically challenged 1-week-old baby was killed.
Children who are born disabled, at times we do away with them. We say they don't fit into the society. Even in school self, I don't think we allow them to go to school. It is sort of witchcraft. The witches are hunting them. When the person is born a witch, so such a person, we don't want him in the society. I think some years, one happened. A small child was born about a week. The child started eating, so the parents have to do away with the child. In fact, it is inhuman. A child, then the child started eating normal. Fufu, they left over. The mother saw the child eating. So the child was killed? The child was killed.
Solomon Atta agreed to take me to the chief priest of Carbon Wule, an old man whose name loosely translates as death is better than trouble. He confirms the assertion by the secretary to the chief, as he says physically challenged children are not fit to live amongst humans. As pressure to get rid of 3-month-old Mauko grows, her mother and father say they are optimistic she'll become a shining light for her community and a story will change the age-long belief. They admit they cannot do it alone and will need the assistance of their community and Ghana as a whole.
So that's the Maxwell Agbegba's report. We can now hear from gender and child rights activist Dinah Adiku. Now she wants a change in mindset and awareness creation on bad cultural practices.
It's the issue of increased awareness. You would admit that the treatment that is being meted out to this child and family is purely based on the fact that we do not, communities do not understand issues around disability and all of that. And it's a reflection of how we as a people see and treat disability. It's just a manifestation of that. Again, that not only is this child being identified as a spirit child, but our community as an entirety is very quick to call children witches, to call children spirits. If you move it away from this community and look in our churches, you see on TV a number of church activities being aired, and repeatedly little children are identified and called out as witches and responsible for destruction and havoc in their families. And often you even see the children themselves being called out, and they themselves confirming that indeed they are witches, they've done this, they've done that. We are at that stage where we need awareness needs to increase on disability, and our conscience needs to be open to the fact that not everybody will be like us.
So that's the child rights activist in there, Dinah Adiku. It's time for business, and George Wiafe joins us in studio. Hello, George.
Hi, Emefa, and how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, George.
You seem to be excited that Chelsea is playing tonight, even though I know you are a Manchester United fan.
Because I can see their future. But
that they are going through to the finals, right?
We'll see how it goes.
Well, Emefa, coming up in business, credit extension to businesses under threat as COVID-19 hit loan repayment for this year. Meanwhile, the Bank of Ghana is calling for continued supervision to deal with any challenges ahead as the pandemic lingers on. And over 1 billion Ghana cedis mobilizing taxes from oil marketing firms due to the workings of strategic mobilization firm since June last year. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business. Kingdom Books and Stationery your number one-stop shop for all your office essentials, and also brought to you by Allianz Life. Let's now settle for the details as you look at the fact that over 1 billion Ghana cedis has been mobilized in taxes under a year from the activities of oil marketing companies and bulk oil distribution firms. Now, that's according to revenue assurance firm Strategic Mobilization. The company was appointed in 2017 by the Ministry of Finance, but last year started mobilizing volumes of petroleum product lifted by the oil marketing companies from the various depots and tank farms through a remote digital equipment and platform. Speaking to Joy Business after a media engagement on a site in Tema, Managing Director Christian Suti noted that they are now looking at expanding their workings to cover other areas.
Maybe what is left, we don't have the connection to the main GRA platform, which is called the icons. We are not connected yet. If we get connected, then we'll have access to the declaration that is made. So now we are monitoring, and we can fiscally say that, okay, so much volume has been lifted. But the next stage is, has that volume been translated into the declarations on the icons? Then we'll take it further. What has been declared, has it been paid for? So we have been assured that our system will be connected to the icons declaration session.
And that is the Managing Director of Strategic Mobilization Limited, Christian Suti, currently monitors over 16 depots of the oil marketing companies and bulk oil distribution firms in the country. Let's talk about the banking sector, because businesses could struggle to secure fresh credits from banks in the coming months. Now, this is based on difficulties encountered by firms in paying bank loans that they've already secured from these commercial banks. These developments were captured in the latest Bank of Ghana Sector Development Report. We have details in this report.
The Bank of Ghana and its Banking Sector Development Report noted that high rate of loan defaults was due to the inability of businesses that were hit by the pandemic to settle their loans back on time. The challenge has made it difficult for these banks to recover these loans as well as lend it over to new businesses. So far, the regulator puts the value of non-performing loans as at February this year to 7.3 billion cedis, a significant increase from the same period in 2019. The report also shows that growth in loan advances declined sharply. Some have argued that this could be an indication that banks are now feeling the impact of the pandemic. Growth in the profit of banks for the first 2 months of this year was also impacted, as it slowed from 39% in 2019 to 6% in 2020. Despite all these concerns, the Bank of Ghana is, however, optimistic that Ghana's sound financial indicators continue to reflect a well-capitalized as well as strong growth in profits. It, however, notes that continuous monitoring of the banking sector is needed to deal with the potential vulnerabilities as the pandemic lingers on.
And that is the Business Text report. Now, the lockdown measures introduced by government indeed helped slow down the spread of COVID-19 cases in the country. Now, that's one view that one may form after going through the Ghana Statistical Service Mobility Report. The data looked at movements of persons across the region in Ghana in line with the COVID-19 cases reported by the Ghana Statistical Service. It showed that some of these local economies managed to actually minimize the shocks or the problems that came with these lockdowns, and also ensure that they minimize the problems that came with them, ensuring that going forward the situation could be controlled. Let's hear from Wole Ademola. He's actually the implementation coordinator of the survey.
Policy implications do these findings present? The first one, we're looking at the sharp decline in mobility observed following the introduction of the partial lockdown and travel restrictions in the country to have possibly slowed the rate of COVID-19 infections in the country, which means that the lockdown that were instituted along with the other travel restrictions were very effective in slowing the infection in the country. Following this initial reduction in mobility, at least half of all the regions have experienced a full recovery now. You talk of Eastern region has fully recovered. You can talk of some regions like Upper East that have fully recovered. But then Ashanti region still remains and still experiencing some seasonal lower mobility.
And that is Wole Ademola Adeola. He's actually the implementation coordinator of the Ghana Statistical Service Mobility Report that looked at how COVID-19 cases impacted the local economies in Ghana here, and we tracked those who complied with the restrictions and how it affected their respective regions here in Ghana. And that's all for business on Newsnight. Back to you, Emefa and Koju.
Thank you very much, George, for bringing us the latest in business. Let's talk security now. And the police says it has arrested 507 foreigners who entered Ghana through illegal means. They include 494 Nigerians and other West African nationals. The arrest was made in the Upper East Regional Capital, Bogatanga. Now, this evening, the police says it is sharing intelligence with its counterparts in Nigeria to determine if any of the suspects are part of persons who broke jail a few weeks ago. And Gifty Andapia is head of our security desk. She joins us in studio. Gifty, what more details do we have on this?
Well, Kojo, according to the police statement, the immigrants are made up of 494 Nigerians, including 6 females and 13 Burkina-Based. The operation leading to the arrest, according to the police, was mounted as a result of concerns that were raised by the residents of the Upper East region on the influx of foreign nationals who they say engaged in criminal activities and other fraud-related crimes such as QNet in the area. Now, while the illegal immigrants have been processed for repatriation, the police administration is cautioning the public, especially landlords, against accommodating persons whose identities and residential legal statuses are questionable or unknown. It further appeals to the public to give the police information about the suspected criminals and other criminal activities that will come to their attention as and when they know.
Very interesting details there. We'll explore this further in our subsequent bulletins because our borders are supposed to be closed.
Yes.
It's interesting how all of these numbers are coming through around this time. It will be interesting to know the period in which some
That's
of them...
one of the things that the police are looking into, whether or not they came in before the borders were shut.
Our land borders, exactly. Thank you very much, Gifty, for that update. Emefa.
Well, it's time for total recall, and government has pledged to complete by December this year the construction of a stalled school block at Breman Jamra in the central region. We know that the chief of the area is talking about a waiting disaster to happen because other school blocks also have similar cracks in them. 6 kindergarten children died after a building collapsed on them 4 years ago. Following the incident, the education minister then, Dr. Matthew Poku Prempe, said contractors will be immediately sent to the site. Today, Richard Kojunyako has visited the community again. He has a story of unfulfilled promises.
It was in the month of February, and that day was supposed to be a beautiful Tuesday morning here at Breman Jamra. But sadly, the day turned into mourning. About 70 pupils aged 4, 5, and 6 were about to settle for studies when the building collapsed on them. 6 of them died instantly. It got the entire country talking. The education minister visited the scene of the accident in a swift manner. Government made the community a promise, pulled down a school block that also posed a grave danger to the lives of the school pupils here. It's been more than 4 years and that block hasn't been completed. Nana Kwesienin III is the Jasin of Breman Jamra.
When the building collapsed, the Minister of Education through the Minister of Education came here. They gave us a promise that they were going to reconstruct the building. Indeed, the construction started. You can see that a project is ongoing. It's been in this state for the past 6 years or so.
Luckily, that particular KG block that collapsed on the school pupils was rebuilt by an NGO within months. But it seems government promise might take a decade or 2 to be fulfilled.
I'm here in one of the classrooms here at Breman Jamra Methodist School. See, the students are crammed in this small classroom building. This is as a result of government's inability to complete the project it started.
So when our teachers are teaching, we find it difficult to understand because we are uncomfortable. We want the government to continue our buildings for us so that we can be spaded. then we can't even write. 3 people are sharing desks and it's bad for us. We want to change. We plead the government to come and complete the building for us so that we can go and learn.
Richard Kojunako with that report. And the DCE for Isikuma Odobin Brakwa Isaac Odum, where the school collapsed on the 6 kindergarten children, is promising the construction will be completed by end of the year.
We've been able